down the road. Tell me, how long you gonna stay here, Joe? Some people say this town don't look good in snow. You don't care, I know. Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know. Cause the free wind is blowing through your hair, and the days surround your daylight there. Seasons crying, no despair. Alligator lizards in the air, in the air. Wishing on a falling star, waiting for the early train. Sorry boy, but I've been hit by purple rain. Oh, come on, Joe, you can always change your name. Thanks a lot, son, just the same. Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know. Cause the free wind is blowing through your hair, and the days surround your daylight there. Seasons crying, no despair. Alligator lizards in the air, in the chewing on a piece of grass, walking down the road. Tell me, how long you gonna stay here, Joe?
But first, here is
Some people say this town don't look good in snow. You don't care, I know. Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know. Cause the free wind is blowing through your hair, the days surround your daylight there. Seasons crying, no despair. Alligator lizards in the air, in the air. star, waiting for the early train. Sorry, boy, but I've been hit by purple rain. Oh, come on, Joe, you can always change your name. Thanks a lot, son, just the same. Ventura Highway in the sunshine, where the days are longer, the nights are stronger than moonshine. You're gonna go, I know. Cause the free wind is blowing through your hair, and the days surround your daylight there. Seasons crying, no despair. Alligator lizards in the air.
Hey, what's up? How's it going? Welcome to the Weed Glob Show. I'm your home slice Weed Glob, and I'm just making sure that the system hasn't died yet. And it might have died. It might have died. No, we're good. We're living. We're out here. We're doing it. Woo! Big ups to everybody. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you're having a great day today. It is Friday, baby. Got a couple hours to spend with you all, and we're gonna do it. We're gonna hit it off. We're gonna hit it hard, and we're gonna do the right thing. And we're gonna do the right thing. Okay. Woo! Great show. Let's talk about James Madison's Flute and the fact that Ben Shapiro can't handle anyone else being good at music. Oh, but we're good. Wow. Wow. Just wow. Talking to you. Do you believe in life after love? Come on, you piece of shit. Why are you doing this to me, computer? Being a real life dickhead. See some things inside myself. Yep. Well, okay.
Lizzo.
I can play it or no?
Yes.
Oh, my lipstick doesn't. Right? That's what I want to know.
We'll see.
Oh, we'll see.
Killing it, Lizzo.
It's crystal. It's like playing out of a wine glass, bitch. So be patient.
Let's see it again. It sounds great. Fuck you, James Madison.
So, in case you didn't know, Lizzo is a trained
Trained. Yeah, she's a professional flautist. Very good at her
a
job.
significantly
Maybe one of the most
overweight
famous flautists in the
African-American
country now.
musician, right? Because the idea is that it's groundbreaking for an African-American musician to play James Madison. The
idea
contrast
here.
between
Here's
the first clip,
Ben
totally
Shapiro's
uncontroversial.
idea.
The one that actually made the rounds, however, was her twerking, because it is the contrast. That's the whole point that they are
No.
making. And commentators were saying
They
this.
both
It is
made
the
this
contrast
circle.
between Lizzo, a significantly overweight African-American musician, right? Because the idea is that it's groundbreaking for an African-American musician to play James Madison,
TM.
one of the founders of the Constitution,
Registered
to play his
trademark.
flute.
TM.
That's the groundbreaking aspect. But really, it isn't even her race, right? They tried to make it about her race. It isn't really her race, because I'm sure that if they had wanted to find a better
Who's
flautist
they?
who is black than Lizzo, I'm sure that there are many black flautists who are significantly better
She's
than
the
Lizzo,
most
right? They play in
famous
orchestras around
one.
the world. I'm sure they are wonderful. Okay, so if the idea was just going to be, we are going to take a historic instrument that belonged to a white Southerner who was in charge of founding the Constitution, and we are going to have a
I
very
like how he has
talented
to
African
say
American
white
black person play
Southerner
that.
as well. You know what I
That
mean?
would have been
Homeboys
really
out here like
uncontroversial.
slave
Like seriously,
master.
it'd be the equivalent of if let's say that George Washington had a harpsichord, and we had Condoleezza Rice go and play the harpsichord. Like everyone would be like, okay, all right.
Nobody
fine.
would do that.
Okay,
Who
but
the fuck wants
it is the twerking that does it.
Condoleezza
Understand
Rice
it's
to
twerking.
play
It
the
is about
fucking
twerking.
harpsichord,
The story
dog?
is solely and completely about the twerking, which is why you didn't see the first
It's
video.
not about the twerking.
The
It
first
has
video
nothing to do
is a
with the
view clip,
twerking.
the one of somewhat decently. It is
She's
the
not
second
even
video where
twerking.
she
She's
is
just shaking her
twerking
butt.
and wearing skimpy outfits with the flute. That is because the idea
not a
is
skimpy
to
outfit.
degrade the culture. That is what people. That is why the clip is viral.
What
The reason the
culture?
clip is viral is the contrast between a
Ben.
person twerking.
Ben, I got a big question for you. What culture are we degrading? White people?
And the
Culture?
idea of an extraordinarily
people culture?
classy instrument, a historic instrument that speaks to sort of the gentility of America's founders
Genitality.
being brought into
It
a context that
speaks
is
to the
vulgar. It's the
genitality.
vulgarization of American history. Again, Lizzo did both, and only one of those clips went viral.
No, they both
Every day
did.
on this show, there's some clip that is taken that is utterly uncontroversial and then made into a thing on Twitter.
Oh my God. Yeah, every day on this
Lizzo is playing James Madison's crystal flute. She's the first person to ever play that instrument. James Madison, like all founding fathers, was a complicated person, but he wasn't that complicated, right? He enslaved people. He never freed a single slave in his entire life, even in his death. He was the architect of the Three-Fifths Compromise that allowed the southern slave-owning states of which he was from to count enslaved
don't
people
say
as
so,
three-fifths of a
do
human
ya?
being, right?
Okay,
He was
you
also
do.
the president of the American Colonization Society that basically said, you know what, black people, even if they are free, are never going to be able to fully integrate into white American society. So let's just ship
They
them off
can't
to a new
do
country
it.
we founded called Liberia. James Madison's crystal flute, I can't think of a more perfect symbol of the wealth and excess of the enslaving aristocracy that many of our founding fathers were a part of. The fact that that flute is being played by a black woman in D.C., the capital of our country that was built on slave labor in front of cheering crowds.
Beautiful.
Amazing.
All right, so I'll get to a few more quick reactions on Twitter, but again, that was Antisocial Studies on TikTok. I'll link to her.
Heard Vosh say this the other day. The fact that people can't just say the slur anymore makes them more agile to undiscovery because of the fact that they are, using underground or subtle terminology to mean something racist. It's like he says motherfucking Southern guy. It's like he means slaveholder.
Last one here. Parker Malloy says, that face when you're a right winger who finds out that Lizzo played a fancy flute you didn't know existed. With a picture of Peterson cried. Peterson, as far as I've seen, has not commented on this, but if he finds out, expect this reaction. Anyways, this whole thing is just ridiculous. Nothing at all wrong with Lizzo playing the flute. I don't, to be honest,
Nothing wrong.
Kim Kardashian, Kylie Jenner, Jake and Logan Paul, Andrew Tate, influencers. Most opinions I hear about famous influencers are negative, yet they all seem to make millions of dollars. Why is that? Today's topic is the creator economy and why influencers are making so much money in 2022. Hey influencer, go get a real job. How many of you have seen someone write that in a comment section on social media? A majority of Americans still have not figured out how the creator economy works, so my hope is that in 15 minutes when you're done watching this video, you'll have a deeper understanding of economics than most of your peers.
I want to become a better
Forbes
creator.
said you made $40 million last year. Now, did you make most of that in boxing or as a social media star?
That's just what I made from boxing. So I made some more on top of that just from like brand deals and advertisements.
Jake Paul made that much money from boxing alone, but he doesn't box against professionals. And how is Jake Paul still relevant? He's an idiot. The definition of ignorance is lack of knowledge or information. Hopefully this video will educate everyone on the creator economy.
Now
and
that I
help
know what
improve
the definition of
understanding people have
ignorance
about
is, I
influencer
think I'm more
economics.
ready for
This is Addison Rae, who was recently featured in a Yahoo article. The comment section was full of great comments to react to. Bob asks, remember when you had to have a talent to be famous? Wearing revealing clothing is not a talent.
I don't think you
there
ever
still seems
needed
to be
a
weird
talent to be
gatekeeping in
famous,
society
bro.
about what constitutes having talent, as if there's some spreadsheet that has a definitive line separating careers that require talent and influencers who have no talent. Turnstiles writes, who is this irrelevant nobody?
Turnstiles.
This is seriously my favorite comment on any social media platform. Addison Rae has 40 million followers on Instagram. She has 88.7 million followers on TikTok.
Also
the
fake,
irony
dude.
of an anonymous Yahoo account calling someone with 120 million social media followers an irrelevant nobody is always so funny to me.
Is
For
it?
reference, Ana de Armas, a current A-list movie star, has 8.2 million followers. And Tom Brady, arguably the most well-known NFL athlete, has 12.7 million.
Yeah. What
But
about
Addison
Cristiano
Rae is
Ronaldo?
talentless. We're going to dismantle that argument in this video. Kylie Jenner reportedly makes $1 million per paid Instagram post. This CNBC article was written in 2018, so her rate may be even higher now. There's still a lot of people who think she's overpaid or just don't understand why influencers make so much money for a stupid Instagram post. My guess is she generates at least $500,000 in profit every time she posts about a brand. I made a video 7 months ago about Catherine McBroom getting sued by her business partner. In the lawsuit, it was alleged that her cosmetic brand was on pace for $30 to $60 million in revenue in year one.
Whoa.
She was the only influencer marketing the company, and they were pacing to do over $30 million in revenue in year one. That is influence, which is why some influencers get paid so well. Back to Jake Paul. Everyone loves to hate Jake Paul.
We
How
love
did he
it.
make $40 million in 1 year? Jake and Logan figured out early in their careers that attention matters
Just
above all
move to,
else. If you're getting attention,
Cuba.
love or hate, the popularity will drive income. They know this better than anyone. In the game of making money, he or she who has the attention wins. It's that simple. What Jake figured out is that he should go full villain mode. Whether people like him or not, they were watching his videos, engaging with his content, telling him how dumb he was for not fighting a real fighter, and then buying his pay-per-view to see him finally lose. This is the same strategy employed by Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor. They both realized that people paying attention to them and buying their fights is all that mattered, so they went full villain mode, created an army of millions of people wanting to see them lose, and then raking in $100 million from a single night after all those people paid money to watch them fight. What about influencer products you don't buy? Advertising runs our economy.
Blue
Think of all of the
Mountain State?
free products you use
How
in life.
old is
They're free
that?
because
Jesus
advertisers pay
Christ.
for your attention. YouTube is the best example of this. We get paid by AdSense based on two major factors: how many ad views and what the advertisers are willing to pay for those eyeballs. For the month of August, I made $5,625 from AdSense based
That's
on
fucking
1.3
good.
million views and a CPM of $9.85.
August
Sponsorship
11th, it blew
integrations
up.
pay much higher. For audiences like mine, brands are willing to pay closer to a $30 CPM. So a video that receives 100,000 views, a brand will pay around $3,000 per video in addition to the AdSense. Now imagine someone who gets more views and has their own products to pitch. A lot of influencers can make $50,000 to $100,000 every single video. For reference, November 2021 was my best month ever views-wise, and my CPM was double what it is today, resulting in a $60,000 month just from AdSense. If a content creator makes more money the more eyeballs they receive, then the incentive is obviously more eyeballs. How do you get more eyeballs? You turn up the polarization knob. This is what every top earner realized. You create a reason for people to talk about you. They hate watch you, they talk. Influencers are basically independent marketers for brands. We receive attention and we promote products or services in the middle of the content. Some of us drive millions of dollars of revenue and get paid adequately for it. My next favorite comment on all of social media is telling influencers to go get a real job. Big Nose Cornelius pretending that he cares when in reality it's all about making money trolling other people and not having to get a real job, lol. My absolute favorite comments are telling influencers to get a real job. Gatekeepers are so much fun. I've never seen a list describing the real jobs in the world. If anyone's seen it, please send it to me. I'd love to look at it and figure out if my job is officially a real job. Get a real job, lame dude. Actually, this could be any YouTuber thinking posting videos is a real job. According to Insider Intelligence forecasts, U.S. influencer marketing spending will reach $4.14 billion in 2022. Double-digit growth will continue through 2023 when spending on influencer marketing campaigns will approach $5 billion. My channel focuses on a lot of the bad in the influencer space, but don't let that hide all of the good. There's plenty of influencers that change a business overnight because of a great sponsorship or partnership. A good friend of mine sponsored this episode of Impulsive featuring the Sidemen. If I told you how much they paid, you'd go, oh my gosh, the podcast made how much for just reading a sponsored post for 1 minute? but my buddy made his money back in 1 week. They have significantly more brand awareness, and his company now has new paying customers that will generate more revenue in the future. For those of you in the crowd of influencers should get a real job or they're talentless, I hope my video will help you understand the value that influencers can provide to brands and why they get paid so much money. I've made hundreds of videos on shady behavior and unethical marketing by influencers, so please do not take this video as an endorsement that every influencer is great. I don't understand what the hype is about this girl. I have seen better. I made this video for the Tims of the world who just don't get the influencer economy. He wrote another comment a few minutes later. For the life of me, I don't understand why this girl gets all the attention. She has no background or history except she shook her butt on TikTok. She isn't what you call eye candy. She really needs to hit the gym and ride that stationary bike for a while. She has no talent from what I know. Maybe her fame came from the Kardashians endorsing her. I just don't see the attraction here. I'm sorry. She has 120 million followers on social media and apparently isn't eye candy. Yeah, Tim, I'm sure you have beautiful women blowing up your phone. Can you imagine spending your time writing comments like this? But it summarizes this video perfectly. It's so funny for me to see.
Yeah. Isn't it so funny? Hey, that's the thing we're doing right now.
Anywhere, no lines, no traffic, no hassle. Stamps.com is your one-stop shop for all your shipping and mailing needs. For more than 20 years, Stamps.com has been indispensable for over 1 million.
Wanted to watch the, it's not on there. What do we got going on here? It's me.
This episode and others like it are brought to you by the generous support of my patrons on Patreon. If you'd like to help support my channel and get early access to every video, consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/secondthought. This is a video about why Uber and the whole gig economy sucks, and also about how more and more jobs are getting gigified.
Let's go!
Since this topic's been floating around in the background for 10 years now, let's start with something recent.
72% of drivers in the US are saying that one of the considerations of their signing up to drive on Uber was actually inflation. Life is getting more expensive. They need to pay extra for their groceries. So on the supply side, we may be actually benefiting from the inflationary environment.
I want to dig into
the clip I just played is a delicious little treat.
Wow.
In this clip, Uber CEO Dara Khosrowshahi is on CNBC doing a big
because
oopsie
shit's
and
more
openly
expensive,
admitting
more
that his
people
company
need
benefits
Uber.
from people
That's a
having
good
less
thing.
money. In this case, because of inflation. He's a happy little guy because people are flocking to drive for Uber out of desperation. And that means he gets to tell investors the line is going up this quarter. Just look at that smile. I could honestly end the video here, because nothing I can say will ever top a tech CEO transparently describing how he plans to make money off an economic crisis, pushing thousands of Americans closer to food insecurity, and then smiling. But I am a glutton for watch time, so onward with the rest of the video. That clip is only the tip of the iceberg. Uber, and the economic model it's come to represent, is about a lot more than profiteering off inflation and sudden explosions in poverty. You might have heard the term Uberization before, or platform capitalism, or simply the gig economy. Apps like Uber, Lyft, Grubhub, TaskRabbit, Fiverr, and all the other Uber but for blank apps have unleashed onto society a
It's
supposedly
Uber,
new and
but
disruptive
for
economic
artists.
model. Its advocates, and these apps themselves, describe the gig economy as a whole new way to work, a whole new society, reimagined from the ground up with futuristic technology at its core, and in which an unprecedented number of people will get the freedom to set their own hours, work from anywhere, be their own boss, and if they work hard, rake in big bucks. But of course, rather unsurprisingly, this is all BS. Every part of it, including the idea that any of this is new.
Hell yeah.
Let's first start with the money thing, specifically drivers' wages, because it's a good entry point into understanding not only what this economic model really is, but also why it's become such a staple. Figuring out how much Uber drivers, or any other gig workers, make is a headache for everyone, including gig workers themselves. Inconsistent hours, demand, supply, tips, surge pricing, app policies, location, Driver data-based algorithms and so on mean that there is no normal situation from which to extrapolate a universal estimate, despite there being years of data at this point. There's no one number that really tells the whole story, and the question, how much does an Uber driver make, unfortunately doesn't have a single answer. Nonetheless, two things are certain. One, it's a lot less than they should be, and two, Uber lies and inflates its numbers, by a lot. Back in 2014, for example, Uber used to say that the median salary of its New York drivers was $90K a year. A pretty good sum. More than the city's average salary and way above minimum wage. With this number that the company was very proud of, Uber was telling potential drivers that it could offer a salary on par with a job that requires a college degree, but with the only barrier to entry being owning a car. If this sounds too good to be true, it's because it is. It didn't take long for reporters to look into it, and driving for Uber full-time absolutely does not end with $90K in workers' pockets. In reality, reporters estimated that New York's Uber drivers made around $12 an hour, or about $25,000 a year full-time. In other words, under the poverty line for a family of 4. And astute observers will have recognized that $25K is, believe it or not, actually a lot less than $90K. Admittedly though, this is just one calculation
quite
made
a bit
pretty
less
anecdotally.
than $90K.
More recently, it's been estimated that Uber drivers' earnings are even lower, around $350 a month on average, and $155 at the median. These numbers are, again, hard to truly understand, because they lump together full-time, part-time, and occasional drivers. And while these numbers can give us a general idea of what's going on, there's still nothing specific. Luckily, you don't need specific numbers to understand the problem with Uber and other gig economy employers. Uber drivers, like almost all gig economy workers, are technically considered by the company as independent contractors. As such, Uber drivers do not get basic things like a minimum wage, health insurance, paid time off, sick days, overtime pay, or any other benefits associated with salaried employment. Every moment that you are not working is money out of your pocket, meaning that those for whom the app is the sole means of revenue have incentives to spend as much of the 100 maximum hours the app allows you to work per week doing just that. This also means that any major injury or sickness or any sudden life event puts drivers and other gig workers in a very precarious position. Uber's entire model leads to overworking and exhaustion, measures that Uber hardly combats with driving caps that still allow most waking hours to be working hours. Reports of drivers sleeping in cars and doing incredibly long stints are not only common, but can be exacerbated by the ability to switch between apps to avoid automatic cutoffs. The kind of move that makes sense when a 40-hour work week isn't enough to avoid literal poverty. And, unsurprisingly, Uber benefits tremendously from this arrangement. Freedom to set your own hours discourse has pretty successfully shielded the company from all sorts of criticisms about these kinds of consequences that are very much intentional. Any worker dissatisfied with their earnings, or the amount of work they're doing to earn a meager wage, can be told to simply work harder or smarter. Supposedly, you have the freedom to work as much or as little as you like. So if you aren't happy, you can just adjust those variables. Never mind that what the law is meant to guarantee for someone punching in 40 hours isn't applicable. But there's more to it. Thanks to, let's call it the legal optimization strategy of considering drivers independent contractors, all the costs associated with providing Uber service, getting people from point A to point B in a car, are completely shouldered by drivers themselves. Whether that's buying the car or renting it, paying for the maintenance and the cleaning, paying for insurance, self-employment taxes, income taxes, healthcare, and most importantly, gas. These are all on the driver's dime. Damn. Drivers are responsible for all these payments that can take a pretty good gross income, like the one Uber likes to show off, and turn it into a poverty line net salary very quickly. Normally, a company would handle most of these costs and need to provide at least a minimum wage. But thanks to this legal loophole, Uber doesn't. This is what makes the company stand out, and makes it so attractive to investors. For years, in order to make this horrible deal legally viable, Uber has made every effort to portray itself as a simple middleman. Just an app, nothing more. A sort of service that drivers pay for with a cut of their sales, but by no means an employer. Something Uber loves to remind its drivers with the use of the phrase, "be your own boss." Uber justifies this by saying that it doesn't set its drivers' hours, like a normal business would, nor does it force its drivers to take rides, the way a salaried employee might be given tasks to accomplish as part of their work. But of course, these are superficial details considering the enormous amount of control Uber still has on its drivers. Using data collected from every ride, every driver, and every rider, Uber toggles variables like price, number of rides, and other important things that drivers are not privy to and cannot negotiate within a range of variability much greater than would ever be normal for an independent contractor. This means that although Uber might not formally work like a traditional employer, the algorithms and policies it has in place effectively give it as much control over its drivers as if it did. Uber can quite suddenly turn the tap off, cut its drivers' earnings, and blame the whole thing on fluctuating demand or the algorithm. But in most places, the law doesn't consider this amount of power over work to be traditional employment. So Uber can keep circumventing labor laws, including some very important ones. In many countries around the world, independent contractors have practically no guarantees, as we've already covered with minimum wage and healthcare being off the table. But more sinister and less well known is that in plenty of countries, independent contractors cannot form unions. In the US, under the National Labor Relations Act, for example, only employees are guaranteed this right, meaning that any form of collective bargaining that could raise workers' wages, set more reasonable limits on driving hours, or in any way improve the experience that drivers have with the company is off limits. And now that the public and the state have caught on, gig economy companies are making sure that this extremely lucrative loophole won't disappear. Back in 2020, for example, Uber and Lyft spent $200 million to stop California from classifying Uber drivers as employees. And in 2016, Uber and Lyft lobbyists outnumbered Amazon, Microsoft, and Walmart combined. This lobbying powerhouse means that Uber can't fail, even when it does. Recently, for example, the UK formally reclassified Uber drivers as employees, but Uber still held onto its strategy and therefore its profits by ensuring that things like minimum wage guarantees would only apply when drivers had a passenger in the car. Something which the app is only able to do 40 to 50% of the time, meaning the minimum wage guarantee is effectively slashed in half. Drivers spend almost half their time on the clock waiting through no fault of their own, but get punished for it. All thanks to Uber's powerful lobbies in yet another perfect example of how pushing the independent contractor story doesn't line up with the traditional employment reality. Clearly, spending all that time waiting conflicts with the whole setting your own hours guarantee an independent contractor should normally be actually guaranteed.
Yeah.
Then there's the fact that even if Uber says it's an app for free independent contractors, or people working a couple extra hours as a side hustle, Uber is completely dependent on the people who treat driving for the app as a full-time job to survive. And it proves as much with all its efforts to actively seek them out. Uber would simply not work without functional employees. And as proof, in 2021, the company set aside $250 million for a so-called driver stimulus, desperately trying to attract full-time drivers from its pool of part-time workers. This is because, according to data from the city of Seattle, 1/3 of Uber's drivers, those that work full-time, provide up to half of all rides.
Damn.
Uber simply couldn't survive without people treating it like a full-time, normal job. But the company can't ever admit this fact without risking labor laws killing their whole business model. In practice, this means that all Uber has done is turn back the clock and called it innovation.
Yep.
It has popularized a model that produces full-time employment without the legal protections earned through decades of militant labor struggles, like the 8-hour workday, the weekend, Social Security, and so on. It has taken us back to a time where companies hold all the cards, with no exceptions and no governmental regulations to prevent them from pursuing ever more destructive labor policies. And while Uber may not be profitable, despite its now 13-year-long existence, investors continue putting money in and holding their shares because they recognize that this model, with its ability to slash employment costs, is the best chance they have at profitability in the long run. And what's terrible is how little this actually has to do with Uber. The rest of our economy has completely bought in. Today, 70% of Ryanair's pilots are independent contractors, airplane pilots. And if that doesn't seem crazy enough, Several companies are now trying to do the same thing in the healthcare industry, pushing nurses into that same independent contractor status and saving hospitals money.
Yep.
That is, saving hospitals money not by nationalizing healthcare or preventing insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies from profiting off of people's basic need to continue living and being healthy,
that
or
part.
any other sensible measure,
Mamma
but by
mia.
gutting workers' paychecks. And it's
Yeah.
not just
And
a matter of a
saving
few
their own.
examples
They're just
here
like,
and
well,
there.
you don't get health
Today,
care.
53% of
Fuck
people
'em.
aged 18 to 24 who work in the gig economy do so as their primary income source. And according to a Princeton study, 94% of the net employment growth in the US between 2005 and 2015 has been in quote-unquote alternative work arrangements, meaning independent contractors, temp work, and freelancing are basically the only new jobs our economy is producing. While we tend to think of companies like Uber and Lyft as the main perpetrators of this shift in work, they actually represent a very small piece of the pie, as little as 0.5% of workers according to that same study. The sad truth is that regulating a few apps won't be enough. Our entire economy now depends on the blatant exploitation of a legal loophole that allows conventional companies to hire conventional employees, call them something else, and get away with a bigger cut of the profit.
Yeah.
And although companies like Uber have made their name by blatantly breaking the law and entering markets where protections for workers would have kept them out, in some cases, the transition to precarious gig work has been welcomed by our governments. The Uber files, a leak from earlier this year, revealed that then Minister of the Economy, now President Macron, negotiated with Uber representatives to get the company in France, screwing over established taxi drivers and bringing in a new service that would outcompete them by being more affordable thanks to Uber's own subsidies, and of course the company's reliance on a more exploitative and damaging contract with its employees. Confronted with this leak, Macron has even doubled down, stating he would, quote, do it again tomorrow and the day after tomorrow.
Damn.
The picture that's emerged from the past few years presents a very grim vision for the future. The trend of precarious work that is poorly paid, unprotected, and maximally exploitative will obviously continue. Governments, beholden to the profit motive and the private interest that lobby them, will continue accommodating this exploitation, happily rolling back the gains of organized labor when they get in the way. Without intense organizing efforts, the future, and frankly the present, is not bright. For decades, people have been told that if they are poor, if they are miserable, that they should just work harder, make money by selling their time and energy to someone who will profit from their exhaustion more than they themselves ever will. It was always a raw deal. But now that even a full week's worth of work isn't enough, that companies gloat when inflation pushes people into more dire poverty, and that our governments welcome these changes with open arms, what could there possibly be left to support? Our labor landscape needs a complete overhaul, and we're not going to get it with politics as usual. I mentioned at the beginning of this video that this kind of content is made possible by my patrons on Patreon. As I've expressed many times before,
Follow 'em on Patreon,
YouTube
too.
doesn't treat socialist creators very well.
I
Because of
like
this,
it.
I rely on viewers like you to maintain my channel.
You're right.
This video is sponsored by Keeps.
You know I love me some Battlefield 2042 vids. Come on.
War. Bullets.
Paid promotion. Oh.
Explosions. Chemicals. Worse. But every day, the weaponry that supplements these wars only gets better. Tens of billions of dollars. Thousands of hours of manpower. All spent on technology based on one thing. Complete and utter annihilation of the other side. Contraptions too sick to even ponder. And over the decades, this new technology has changed warfare immeasurably. And it's only getting more advanced. Robot dogs, sentry guns, surveillance drones, and more are either already being used or are in early stages of testing. And as a result, the landscape of war is changing forever. And with 20 years of simulating modern combat with complete immersion, DICE sought to give us a glimpse into this future with their next game. And in 2021, with their most up-to-date tech, gargantuan budget, and 4 whole dev teams at their disposal, they were set to launch the biggest and best Battlefield game of all time.
That's what I thought.
Battlefield 2042.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Oh God!
But
I thought
first,
it was just gonna
your
get
hair.
better, but then
There's
like
a chance that
after
over time,
2-3
you
weeks
could
of it, I
fall
was
off,
like, oh, this
just
game
like it did
is.
to me.
They're not doing
And
anything.
2 out of 3
to
men
it.
will experience some form of hair loss by the age of 35.
Like at some point,
But-
you assume you're gonna fix it, but then you're like, wait, it's been 3 weeks and there has yet to be.
Critic scores are looking good, but user reviews, not so much.
This game is totally not ready for release.
Fake history, no atmosphere, 0 out of 10.
Very sloppy
SJW
production.
propaganda regressed into feeling like a COD game.
just robbed me.
Also, the marketing, not the best. Turns out that insulting your fans and telling them not to buy your game isn't too productive here. Damn. The trailer and cosmetics of the game also proved to be controversial.
What is that? What the fuck is that?
And the launch came packaged with a horde of glitches, bad
Oh, this is
anti-cheat,
5.
unbalanced weapons, and massive portions of the game delayed. Overall, not great. It had also been 2 consecutive World War Battlefield games, and the charm was starting to wear off. Fans longed for the days of high-rise skyscrapers, map-changing events, jets, helis, and so on. Now when it comes to military shooters, DICE isn't just anyone. They're EA's golden boy. EA sees Battlefield 5's sales are, well, disappointing. So they decide it's time for a change. And they know just what players want. It's Back to the Future, kids. And this is going to be a big one. And with that, pre-production of the next Battlefield begins. Naturally, we don't hear much about Battlefield for a while. However, throughout 2021, leaks start to drip, and we get our first taste.
Oh, there he is.
Rumours of a return to Modern Warfare, a soft reboot of the franchise, a game heavily inspired by Battlefield 3, 128 players on PC and next gen.
Oh.
Wow. Then came the horribly grainy, seizure-inducing leaked trailer footage. Quality's not great, but we're parched.
Yeah.
Then came another, and another. They're eventually stitched into one slightly coherent trailer and, oh yeah, now this looked like Battlefield. But finally, on June the 9th, 2021, the next Battlefield is officially revealed.
Yeah.
And it looks amazing.
I thought so too.
Also, we were now practically bathing in information.
He's loving his
First,
chugging, baby.
the bad news. The squad system is being revamped into a specialist system.
Yeah.
Basically, this system sounds more akin to a hero shooter than a classic Battlefield game. This is controversial, but we'll have to see how it plays out. And then there's no campaign. Not a massive loss, to be honest. But that means more resources for multiplayer. Also, a ton of leaks are confirmed. 128 players, massive scale warfare, modern combat, and turns out EA is throwing 4 whole studios at it. They also say that it's way ahead of schedule. Also, there would be 3 whole game sections. All-out warfare, the traditional Battlefield experience, including Conquest and Rush, Hazard Zone, DICE's
so
second take on a
excited for
battle
Hazard
royale,
Zone,
partly
dude.
inspired by Tarkov, and Portal, a game mode that includes maps, weapons, and soldiers from classic Battlefield games. Things were sounding great. And Battlefield 2042 was coming out in just 4 months, in October 2021. But then it's delayed by a month. But don't worry, everyone will have a chance to jump into the free beta in just a few weeks' time.
Oy.
It's
My
Friday,
beta
October
wasn't
6th,
bad.
and at 12 AM PDT, the beta goes online, and the first few players log on. Chaos. Awful player netcode results in rubber banding and abysmal hit registration. The balancing is dreadful. Bugs everywhere. And the game just generally feels off. Also, where was the voice chat? A scoreboard?
Oh God,
Anyone?
dude.
What the hell is
I mean,
This was
the
looking
scoreboard, the voice chat. Where the
Redditors take
fuck?
to the streets within
Hold on, where the
hours.
fuck is voice
But DICE
chat?
has an announcement. Gentlemen, relax. The build for the beta is a few months old. They tell us. The current build at DICE is in a lot better shape, and a ton of issues have been fixed. There's nothing to worry about. Redditors rejoice immediately. Thank God. The game was going to be fine. Phew, that was a close one. And now the wait for release begins.
The release.
Midnight, 12th
It's
of November,
midnight, November
2021.
12th. I
We'd
remember
waited
that day
months
very,
for release,
very, very,
and today was the
fondly.
day. Alright boys, it's go time.
The crazy thing is, Modern
Players who
Warfare
forked out
2 is
$100
going to
to play the
be
game a week
Battlefield
before release, boot up the game,
2042. That's what
and
they're
jump
doing.
in.
They're taking it over. They said, "Good idea. We're going to do it better," and they're good, and they're doing it. What the fuck is this?
What the fuck is this piece of shit?
It's also exciting to play games that are fucking nuts like this and break. It's fun. I have a fun like that shit's hilarious. Where have you seen anything like that? You're just like, this is a video game.
Can't even turn left or right.
Of course.
Players are greeted with an experience so soul-crushingly terrible and fundamentally broken. The game is review bombed mere hours after it launches.
Ooh, yeah.
Only a handful of things from the beta had actually been fixed. In fact, for some people, even more seemed broken. Enjoyed the horrible performance of the beta? How about more crashes? Even worse netcode? Blurrier graphics? Coming right up. Performance is awful on PC, and flickering and pop-ins plagues console.
Oh my god, what's wrong with your face?
Some fans are holding out for a comprehensive day one patch that would fix most of these issues when the game launched for everyone, but turns out that had already gone up. Here's what it fixed. But when the game actually works, you can jump into the fleshed out and richly developed world of Battlefield 2042. The world is dark and gritty. The climate has gotten so bad that natural disasters are almost ubiquitous, causing states to fail everywhere. Millions are starving, left without a country, and fighting a constant resource war worldwide, causing Germany's bankruptcy and... wait, hold on. There's no campaign, so literally none of this matters at all. Also, if the world is so awful, why are the soldiers like this?
What a time to be alive!
Well, that was fun. I am not overconfident. I'm just better than everyone else.
What the fuck?
The hell was that?
Bullet spread in hit registration is still abominable, and people are unloading full mags of their weapons at point blank range, and not landing a single hit. There are many such cases. The balancing? Well, that's still awful too.
That is one big pile of shit.
Yeah.
The PP-29 is almost the only viable automatic weapon, as it's the only one that can sort of land a shot. So naturally, half of the lobby is running around with it. Hovercrafts are also incredibly overpowered, being that they're gunned. They spawn almost indefinitely, and there's 10 of them headed directly towards your team at all times.
Oh, poop.
They can also climb buildings and literally fly. Then there's the squad system, essentially the core pillar of a Battlefield game. This time round, it's not looking too hot. First off, it's a game with 128 players. Your squad is limited to 4. Not a great start. Then, unless you're with friends, you're forced into a squad of randomers, and you can't pick which squad to move to, or create your own. Are friends come online halfway through your game? Unlucky. It's time to back out to the main menu, invite them, and search for a new one. Also, there are no squad points, no chat, no spawn preview, no emotes, and you can't see what equipment your squad is carrying, essentially rendering your squad absolutely useless. Also, The addition of specialists means classes are now a thing of the past, making team play even more redundant. The specialist system also means that players on both teams look exactly the same. Didn't see that tiny friendly dot above your teammate's head? Unlucky, son. Maps in 2042 are abhorrently underdesigned, and around 70% of the lobby are concentrated on a couple of flags, leaving about 4 players on any other objective at any given time. This is in a game of 128 people. The map size also results in running extremely long distances, only to get obliterated by snipers or helis. The actual graphics of the maps are in some cases worse than Battlefield 5. The destruction? Not great. Some buildings' walls are still destroyable, but you can't take down the actual buildings. Something you could do more than a decade ago in Bad Company 2.
That's a lot of damage!
There are still destructive events, but needless to say, they fall a bit short of the mark. The content? Where is it? This game has a total of 22 weapons. Battlefield 4 had 83.
Damn.
Battlefield 4 also had 3 times the gadgets, 3 more maps, and a ton more customization for aircraft and helicopters. Then there's fewer game modes at launch, no stat page, no server browser, dog tags are gone, and so on. The movement. DICE said pre-launch that they were building on what they did with Battlefield 5. Let's take a look at that. Crouch sprinting, not in the game. Rolling, gone. Lying on your back while prone, absent. Grabbing a ledge while falling, not in the game. Literally just leaning left and right like every game post 2012. Nope. You also can't dive under the water like you could in every Battlefield since 4. However, if you stab the water enough times, you can glitch yourself under it. The UI is so dreadful that you can't even tell if your settings are toggled on or off. The melee, well, it speaks for itself. Assassinations are in the game, but they're lazily done. The man you're about to kill is prone. Why don't you help him up, kick him back down again, then stab him in the chest? That makes a lot of sense. DICE added AI bots to the game to pad out lobbies and make sure they're never dead. One issue: they're absolutely moronic.
I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm kind of retarded.
And lastly, there's still no stat page, voice chat, or even a score.
No voice chat, dude.
And all of that was just the actual game design. Then there were the bugs. Are those my footsteps on dry concrete? Why is my gun firing blanks? Did you just die with so much as a toe touching a wall or rock? Sorry pal, nothing I can do. You just parachute down from the sky? Well, there's a chance that it stays deployed after you land, meaning there's now a parachute above you at all times, completely giving away your position. Vehicle physics are slightly broken. Helicopter hot landings are hot. Every time you jump in a tank gun, it's so jittery you might as well be sat directly on top of the engine. By the way, you can actually shoot yourself with that gun while getting inside. Nice. Then there's the random people frozen all around the map, no hit detection on buildings, flying across the map using a ladder, and so on. But hey, the main game's not great.
What?
And Hazard Zone is pretty forgettable, but at least Portal mode is decent. Wait, what's that? The ability to earn XP from it has been removed because of people boosting. That was enough 2042 for one day.
Damn. In Portal, you can make your own matches up and get
People
XP.
are confused. What the hell, DICE? Where was the stat page? Voice chat? A scoreboard? Legacy features. DICE response. Their scientists and engineers had been strapped for time and couldn't get them working for launch. But they promised these intricate and time-consuming features would eventually be implemented. But forget about that. In terms of basic features, the game seemed to have regressed more than a decade. Even the graphics in some cases. Something was clearly disastrously wrong. And naturally, the inevitable happens. What was a strong start with over 100k players on Steam soon starts to dwindle. Within a single month, the game falls below Battlefield 5's player numbers. Player numbers get so bad that cheaters literally discontinue selling their own cheats because of it. Damage control mode was now on. DICE devs gather round. What do players want? What do they need? What about skins? Steve, draft us up a Santa Claus outfit. That looks amazing. Jeff, whip us up a medieval knight, would you? Day of the Dead Man, Baz, get on it. What about a clown skin? A clown. Perfect. Perfect. These skins end up getting leaked ahead of their launch, and the backlash is so bad, DICE is forced to drop them. A series of DICE tweets also stokes some fires. First, a DICE employee tweets about fans' brutal expectations. A stat page, voice chat, basic squad mechanics, a mid-game scoreboard. Brutal indeed. A pre-launch tweet where a DICE employee says that the game was in a solid state and that it wasn't his first rodeo also gains notoriety. So in a shocking twist, the developers of a released AAA game rush to actually finish their game. November 24th, patch 2 is released. This addresses the crazy bullet spread on most weapons, as well as addressing some other balancing issues. 2nd of December, patch 3 is released. This brings UI improvements and more balancing changes. Also, the scoreboard was supposed to release in this update, but that's been delayed. Also, Season 1 of the game is delayed till summer, a full 6 months after launch, as DICE are so busy actually finishing the game. March 8th, 2022. Patch 3.3 is released. After months of work, DICE's finest engineers and top talent working around the clock, billions in R&D, and unprecedented resource allocation, DICE had cracked it, and at the UN General Assembly, they showcase an actual, functioning scoreboard. My god. Nothing short of a miracle. April 18th, patch 4. It had taken 5 months of work post-launch, but now DICE's quantum mechanical scientists are on a roll. First the scoreboard. Now they'd cracked something arguably more impressive. Multiplayer voice chat.
Which one of you motherfuckers called my mom gay?
Everybody type in the chat, Alex is a stupid...
DICE goes on to win multiple government communications contracts, and everyone on the team is nominated for Nobel Prizes, respectively. Oh, and after this patch, those physics-defying hovercrafts should no longer be flying through the stratosphere. Despite these cutting-edge advancements, almost no one is actually playing the game. Over 100,000 have actually signed a petition to get it refunded. But on June the 9th, Season 1 is finally released. Version 1.0. Finally, what DICE considered a full game. 7 months after launch, and Season 1 adds 1 map, a specialist, 2 guns, and 2 helicopters. Compare this to Battlefield 1's first DLC that included 4 maps, 2 operations, a new mode, 6 new weapons, 2 tanks, and a new class. Despite the lack of content, this does revive the player base somewhat. Season 1 also includes a ton of patches, one of which fixes the bug where landing your helicopter at the pace of a falling feather would result in instantaneous explosion. Plans to rework maps and classes are also underway.
Ooh. Some of it.
So what went wrong? Well, let's dive in. A month after the game's launch, prominent leaker Tom Henderson releases a video explaining, from his sources, the inside scoop of development. It's interesting. According to him, due to EA's restrictions on creative freedom, a ton of DICE's veteran developers leave the studio to form their own after Battlefield 5's release. This is also when pre-production for 2042 is just getting going. EA looks around. They see a market filled with battle royales and hero shooters, all just bursting at the seams with money. They want in, and they think Battlefield would be perfect for it. Their game plan is simple. Listen lads, see all that popular stuff out there? Do that. And DICE gets to work. In February
It's like they
2019,
have a Battle
Respawn's
Royale
Apex
inside
Legends
5,
releases and
dude.
basically starts printing EA money straight out the game. EA likes. So DICE takes a bit of inspiration. And in
EA
late
likes.
2019, a Battle Royale setting and the concept of specialists are born. Now there are a few problems surfacing. The first up being the game's engine, Frostbite. Battlefield 5 was developed in just 2 years, meaning DICE didn't have the time to update the game's engine to the newest version. This time round, however, their game had 3 years in the oven, so DICE has plenty of time to upgrade. Now, it was DICE's devs who'd actually created Frostbite in the first place, so this would be a breeze. Wait, hold on. Haven't all those devs just left? Oh god. So barely anyone left at DICE knows how to actually use the engine. And naturally, 2042's Frostbite update ends up taking a while. A long while. In fact, upgrading the engine alone takes over half of the game's development time. What was supposed to take 6 months has now taken 18. Fast forward to March 2020, and everyone's working from home now. This is not good. A process that takes a few minutes in office could now take hours. Also, EA has decided to backtrack and is now saying they want 2042 back to a more classic Battlefield formula. DICE now has to spend a ton of time redesigning the game, and the original concept of 2042 is tacked on as a new game mode. Hazard Zone. August 2020. The concepts and ideas are finalised, and the actual game development begins. This leaves DICE around 1 year and 3 months of actual development time. This is very short for a AAA game of this scale, and that's compounded by the fact everyone's working from home. Also, new devs are still joining. In fact, at this point, almost 90% of DICE's designers had joined after Battlefield 1, 60% during 2042. DICE is now a completely different studio.
I don't even know who you are.
In February 2021, EA's CEO comes out to the world. The Battlefield team is doing an incredible job. The game is way ahead of internal milestones. Isn't that right? Sure. A month later, and DICE realises they're definitely not going to hit internal milestones. Frostbite engineers are then forced to drop their projects and jump on board. Time goes by, and progress on the game is made. And by August, the game is being beta tested internally. It's not long before the consensus is clear. This game is hot dog shit. The only option here is clearly another delay. This game could use at least another year in the oven. No, says EA. No more delays. No more ovens. The game is launching this year. DICE has no choice. And on the 12th of November 2021, the game releases. Battlefield 2042 today is in a much more solid state, and DICE has even recently released their first reworked map. Here's how that's going. However, at this point, few people are still playing the game. 2042's Steam numbers stoop down to sub 5,000, and the game slips further into irrelevance. Claims begin to circulate that EA is now in abandoned ship mode, and that 2042 devs are now down to a skeleton crew. And so, another one of EA's once talented developers has been squeezed dry, its talents harvested, and its franchise forever tainted.
Bye-bye. Still got Apex. They still got Apex. They still got Apex. Navif cheated call. We love it. This guy's videos are weird.
If you are expecting to see him, think again. This is all we have, a blonde-tipped snowflake, right out of a Chinese boy band. Okay, enough of that nonsense.
North Korean,
Raven
or
Software
South
tweeted,
it's
on the
Korean,
14th of
but-
May 2021, they had rolled out a new bandwave that would affect 30,000 accounts. It was no surprise, he would post on Twitter, a few days later that he has been permanently banned. This Warzone cheater simply created another account and went right back to cheating again. He uploads videos to YouTube, pretending to be a great player, and the comment section are fooled by his nonsense. Yet another ban wave was announced by Raven Software. This time, they banned 50,000 accounts, so would he be permanently banned again? You bet, he was banned the same day. This rodent has been banned 3 times now, he just keeps creating new accounts. What part of permanently banned?
I mean, it's a little too much, my dude.
Steven Crowder is an interesting case study for what amounts to a much bigger problem on YouTube and many other parts of the internet. The massive conservative media machine that positions itself as an alternative to the supposedly far-left mainstream media. In Crowder's case, he positions himself as a comedian with a political agenda, riffing on the news of the day, similar to something you'd see on The Daily Show. Here on YouTube, there are plenty of videos pushing back against individuals such as Crowder, and I've made a few of those myself, and I'm sure those will keep getting made. But these should be starting points for a more sophisticated understanding of how propaganda is made. Crowder is a performer who is less concerned with accurately presenting information than he is with entertaining his audience and spreading a conservative message. To explain his role in this propaganda system, we need to address some of what he does head on. But even if I or someone else could fashion the perfect takedown video, leaving Steven Crowder so thoroughly debunked that he quits his show and runs off to live in the mountains, another guy like him will rise up to take his place. So I think it's important we understand his role, how it works in the broader system, so we're prepared for this in the future and can more effectively undermine it. And on the off chance that a Steven Crowder fan is watching this, I'd genuinely love to read comments from anyone who can explain some of Crowder's obvious distortions and what they think about his position in the broader media landscape. I know he's got this defense of being a comedian, but that doesn't excuse how he spreads things that are plainly not true.
But
and
I'm a
even if he does
comedian.
consider himself a comedian, he also presents himself as someone who's disseminating the news. I'd hold The Daily Show to the same standards. And speaking of that, I've always thought it was a bit weak when Jon Stewart in the past tried to deflect from the fact that people used his show as a source of news. I'm sure many people remember that classic TV moment where Jon Stewart embarrassed Tucker Carlson so badly that his CNN show got cancelled.
Here's just what I wanted to tell you guys. Yeah. Stop. Stop hurting America. Okay, now.
There was a moment in there that was a bit of a dodge from Stewart, though.
You have John Kerry on your show, and you sniff his throne, and you're accusing us of partisan hackery?
Absolutely.
You've got to be kidding, man.
You're
He
on
comes and you literally
CNN.
say,
The show that leads into me is puppets making crank phone calls.
At the time, Jon Stewart was one of the most trusted voices on politics in America. According to a 2007 Pew poll, he was the 4th most admired journalist, tied with Brian Williams, Tom Brokaw, Tan Rather, and Anderson Cooper. He was seen as a brave truth-teller, and to be completely fair to his interview skills, he did sometimes ask tough questions of politicians that he was speaking to. And his overall critique in this segment is absolutely accurate, that CNN should be doing real news instead of bogus shows like Crossfire, which was just partisan hackery and theater dressed up as debate. But to fall back on this defense of he's just a comedian when his audience saw him as more than that rings a bit hollow to me.
Yeah.
Steven Crowder will probably never rank high on the American trust scale, but much like Jon Stewart, he's not just a comedian telling jokes. He's delivering news and ideology using comedy. I'm going to do my best to ensure that I'm not presenting random jokes that Crowders make as some sort of serious point, and I hope people don't act as though him making serious points should instead be considered jokes just because it happens to be based on complete crap. So with that out of the way, let's start laying the foundation for this video by asking the simple question, what is Steven Crowder's show like? And to do that, we need to look at a few quick examples. Crowder likes to open his show talking about how he covers the stories mainstream media either ignores or doesn't provide proper context for.
It's weird because it's kind of, you would assume a slow news day, but it's a slow news day because the media really doesn't want to cover what has taken place really from Friday to now.
These examples, by the way, are all from recent videos that Crowder has done, just because I wanted to choose some of the freshest examples of his program. Here's one story that he presented that genuinely caught me off guard, as it does deal in real government policy, this time coming out of the UK. This is from a video titled 2SLGBT? The left can't get their own queer acronym straight.
the UK Health Department just quietly, again, in night published that the Pfizer vaccine, the biotech, whichever.
Dude,
one,
him
I can't
having
remember,
a little pistol
shouldn't be taken by
is
breastfeeding
just
mothers.
so silly. You know what I mean?
Right. They said that also in 2020, I believe, with that one specifically. But other ones you could choose.
This sounds like a big deal. That the UK has just stated, supported by a document from 2020, that breastfeeding mothers shouldn't be getting the BioNTech Pfizer COVID vaccine because it hasn't been thoroughly tested enough. Crowder goes on to say that thanks to a recent update in YouTube's policy, they can now talk about this without fear of censorship.
How about if it saves one life? The guidance said, and the gold standard was, hey, if you're breastfeeding and we don't know, don't put it in your body. Yeah. Now that information isn't a bannable offense.
That's a pretty bold claim, that by YouTube and other social media platforms not allowing this information to be discussed, they are withholding information that could be saving someone's life. And even more vexing, the CDC apparently has conflicting medical information.
CDC strongly endorses it's safe for breastfeeding moms and for pregnant women. CDC still has that on their website.
Now I don't know which
today.
science to trust.
Today they have it on their website.
Maybe
it
the real
conflicts
one.
with the UK.
So which science can be trusted? Is the Pfizer vaccine safe for breastfeeding mothers or not? How can anyone be expected to trust science when we have conflicted information? Unlike Crowder's team, I took the step to actually attempt to answer these questions. If you look at the source given on Crowder's website, all the info certainly matches what he presented. And I can confirm that at the time this video came out, that little blurb in the top left corner certainly said this page was updated on August 16th, 2022. Only this isn't the only web page that was updated on that day. Looking at every single recent regulatory approval reveals that they were all updated on August 16th, 2022. This is the first major hint that something is a bit amiss here. If we look at the website more carefully, we can see that this August 16th update doesn't specifically refer to this document, but rather includes all the web pages in the section of the website. And if we go through the added step of reading this document, not simply the relevant excerpt, we find out that it was originally published in December of 2020 and last received an update in June of 2021, when part of this authorization was extended. What Crowder and his team get disastrously wrong with this is that this page isn't the UK's current guidance on COVID vaccination. This is a record of the vaccine's assessment in December of 2020. Since then, much more research has been done and the UK's recommendation has been updated. In fact, since the airing of Crowder's video, this page has been updated to clarify the situation. It now includes a blurb and redirects people to a more recent page for information on how these vaccines might affect breastfeeding mothers. In addition to discussing research that's been done in the last year and a half, a key section reads, "There is no evidence that COVID-19 vaccination while breastfeeding causes any harm to breastfed children or affects the ability to breastfeed." Okay. This false alarm over breastfeeding women being vaccinated isn't new either. In May of 2022, the same claim was being pushed on social media, including Facebook and Twitter. Crowder is taking this chance to spread this recycled bit of misinformation, presenting old vaccine regulatory approvals as current vaccine guidance. Medical and regulatory jargon can be difficult to parse, so this mistake is almost understandable. But the fact that there are responses to this specific claim a Google search away makes me think Crowder and his team didn't do more than a bare minimum of research, or are deliberately spreading misinformation.
Yeah, there you go.
And if you think that maybe this is holding Steven Crowder and his team to a standard when they're a comedy show, here's a clip of what Steven Crowder says his show is trying to do.
There's nothing else that you glean from the show aside from entertainment. I hope that it's how to think, how to question, how to reason. Don't just take these opinions. Don't take it as carte blanche. Just go up and say, well, this is what they said. Check the references.
Steven Crowder loves to talk about how he includes the sources under his videos, typically found on his website. And the endnotes are a bit strange to read. Usually links get repeated several times, creating this illusion of research when they're really just reacting to a single article. And sometimes the notes just repeat what was said in the video with no additional context. Again, creating the impression that a lot of thought is being put into this program when clearly they're only looking at a few random stories, maybe reading a single supporting news article, or researching a cherry-picked stat and moving on. When data starts getting cited specifically, things start getting really wild. Here's one example I particularly enjoyed. On September 6, 2022, in a video titled, "Who are the MAGA Republicans Biden is targeting?" Crowder discussed a recent mass stabbing in Canada where 11 people were killed and 19 were injured. Crowder's angle on the story is that these murders could have been prevented had people been armed.
It's an unwritten agreement if you're in a room with people that you don't stab me, right? I'm sort of banking
I like
on you
that
not
he
stabbing me.
has
The
like
United
full
States, the unwritten
clips
agreement we
on
also
him
have is,
now.
I'm hoping you don't stab
That's
me.
how
And you don't know what I have on my
insecure
belt.
he is. He has
This muddy
full-on
discussion of
clips
philosophy eventually gets
with
somewhere
his gun.
interesting when he tries to use statistics to prove that
I'm
all this
always
talk about
ready
gun
to
violence
unload
in
a
the United
couple,
States
baby.
is overblown.
Well, if you look at the murder rates per 100,000, you have El Salvador, you have Jamaica, you have Honduras. We have less than 5 homicides per 100,000. Jamaica, for example, has 43. El Salvador has 52.
Note that we're only seeing the top 6 here. It almost makes one wonder where exactly the United States ranks globally. It's a bit difficult to find up-to-date numbers for every country, and Crowder cites numbers from Statista that are hidden behind a paywall. It's also strange to cite the homicide rate for 2022 when there are still 4 months left in the year, and then compare it to a full year's data for the United States. I decided to look at numbers from the United Nations. Looking at that data, the US is ranked 59th between Tanzania and Bolivia. Of course, the numbers for both of these countries are a bit old, so there might be some wiggle room here. And really, 59th isn't the worst number in the world. It's certainly not top 10 material. But remember, the point of comparison here is Canada. You know, the country that had a recent mass stabbing, which Crowder said never would have happened in the United States, under the presumption that a heavily armed population would be safer. If we look at the comparative homicide rankings of these two countries, though, the US is in 59th and Canada ranks at 117th. So if we're arguing which country has a bigger problem with homicide, I think it's pretty clear that the United States is significantly more dangerous than Canada in this respect. But there are more egregious abuses of stats coming up.
And we're not even in the top 10 for mass shootings in the West.
Oh boy. Da 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 da. Oh, okay. I have to get going. Apparently, I have work sooner than I thought today. That's okay. But it was a blast hanging out. Big shout outs. Thank you so much. Don't forget to follow, subscribe. I'll be back later. That was fun. I mean, we just kind of kicked it. Just kind of chilled. All right. You know what I mean? No expectation. What are you going to do? I'll see you probably Monday. Alright, big shout outs to the world. Follow me on Twitch every Wednesday. Alright. Bye.
It's a fight, don't you lie. Your pussy dripping, vision dripping down your thighs. It's a fight, get high, digging deep while I'm looking in your eyes. My business, I know you feel. It's a fight, different vibe. It's my vibe, nigga. All the bitches like it. Okay, so I got the ambience, this where I want it. And if you get paid, it's solely based on your performance. My ego is enormous like my crib in California. If you ain't got no heart, man, you're gonna need a donor. Now I said I'm from the corner of the ATL. When we got that clientele, avoid paper trails. Broke so many